Hey guys. Okay, so if you could tell by the title, today we are going to be talking about postpartum depression. Disclaimer before I start, I was never actually diagnosed from my OB or any primary doctor that I had postpartum depression, but I'm pretty sure I had postpartum depression due to the symptoms that I had, just because my symptoms match up with what postpartum depression is pretty well. One of the biggest ones I would say was like a really good indicator that I felt like I had postpartum depression was because I would think about death and I would think about dying a lot, and I have never thought that way before in my life before. So that's what really, once that started happening to me, that's when I really thought like, yep, this is probably postpartum depression. But yeah, I'm just gonna talk to you guys about how this all started and how I was able to overcome it. I had, as many of you guys may know, I had twins. I had two baby girls back in November 7th. We're still living together, but in a different house. I was living with my fiance in his parents' home while I was pregnant, and for the first couple months of my baby girls' lives, we were living in his home. And the only bad thing about the first few months was the fact that I spent a lot of time by myself and a lot of time just in a constant routine of changing diapers, feeding the babies, trying to get a small nap in, and then having to do that over and over and over again every single day because Fabian was working. He only had about 3 weeks off of work, but the thing was, he wasn't able to help me with the babies in those 3 weeks because they were in the NICU for about a month. So thank God he had those 3 weeks off though, because he was helping me recover after what happened to me after I gave birth to my twins, but he wasn't able to be there to help me through all of those late nights and all those like all day while I was watching the babies, because he had to go right back to work when they came home. So I briefly mentioned that Fabian was taking care of me those first 3 weeks. I hemorrhaged right after, like 5 hours after I gave birth to my twins. So it took me a lot longer than the typical person takes to heal and get back to their normal routine after having a C-section. So that was really hard on me. I'll go more into detail about my hemorrhage story later on in a different video, but I'll just say like it was the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to me before. And I mean, I'm only 20, but it was pretty intense. And so that kind of took like a little bit of a toll on me. I wasn't able to do all my normal things. I wasn't able to care for myself. I wasn't able to shower on my own. I wasn't able to put clothes on my own. Like I was pretty bad. I couldn't walk for weeks. I was wheeled around in a wheelchair, and it's just the shift from being a very healthy, kind of athletic. I did sports in high school, and I would go to the gym like every day before my pregnancy. So being like a healthy 19-year-old girl to being in a wheelchair and being very unable to do typical things that I should be able to do, that shift was really, really hard for me, and it was really hard for me to be positive, especially because during that shift I was just constantly thinking about the fact that my babies, which were born prematurely, were in the NICU, and you know, coming home after carrying your babies for how many months in your stomach and not being able to bring them home with you, like all of those things, I had so many things going on, and so that kind of all started to feed into what ended up becoming my postpartum depression. By the time the babies did end up getting home, I was able to actually do some things on my own. I was able to finally dress myself again and do, you know, some normal things again. But it was me being very weak and me being, you know, me not being able to do the normal things that I was able to do, jumping straight into having to full-time care for two little tiny babies, like 5-pound and 6-pound babies that needed extra care and extra attention because they were premature babies. So that was really tough on me. I didn't have my fiance there while I was doing all those late nights, while still trying to heal myself and trying to be like the 100% caretaker to my babies. And even though I did end up getting help from Fabian's mom, and I did end up getting help from my parents, it's just the fact that I was literally just stuck in a routine that lasted for months. Well, whenever a family member would come over, which was primarily just for them to give me a break and help me out with something, I felt so lonely and so like deprived from human connection that when they would be over and I should have been spending that time resting and sleeping while they would take over taking care of the babies, I just wanted to talk to people. Like I just would just be up for hours that I should have been resting, talking to my mom when she'd come over, talking to my dad when he'd come over, talking to my friends that I would always trying to be inviting over, because I was literally stuck inside of my room for months because my babies were premature. I was scared to take them outside. It's very easy for them to get sick as newborns, let alone premature 6 weeks. So I was very scared to take him outside, so I would just trap myself in my room for months. That extra time that I should have been resting myself, while I had people over to help me take care of my kids, I would just be talking with people because I was so deprived from human connection. When I think of postpartum depression, I think a big part of what it is derived from is from sleep deprivation, like the crazy amount of sleep deprivation, and obviously your hormones being out of balance because of the fact that you were pregnant for so many months and then all of a sudden you don't have a baby in you anymore. So the hormone imbalance and the sleep deprivation, it's just like, I feel like was definitely the reason why I ended up getting so depressed. But then on top of that, my baby's being in the NICU, my baby's being small, me not being able to hold them as long as I had expected I was going to, how long I wanted to, and then just being deprived from like society. I didn't go out. I was never like on my phone. I didn't really get to see what the outside world was doing. I remember, okay, so my babies were born in November. I remember going out just to go out get food with Fabian in like late December. And I remember the last time I had gone out, it was, you know, just like normal outside. But then once I went out with Fabian, there were lights up for Christmas. I was like, when did this happen? And then it was like the next week it was Christmas. Like I was like living under a rock. That's literally what my life felt like, because I was in a constant routine. And that routine was very lonely because, you know, newborn babies aren't interactive at all. They just eat and sleep and cry and cry and cry and cry a lot. So that mixed with sleep deprivation and mixed with my hormones being imbalanced, like I was really, really a mess. And because I was such a mess, my relationship with Fabian wasn't great because once he would get home from work, I was just like, I had just, you know, gone through so much during that day taking care of the twins that I was just rude to him unnecessarily. I would just start picking fights unnecessarily. And then all of a sudden, after doing so much of that and fighting with Fabian and just being so stressed, being so tired, being, I don't know, so hormonally imbalanced, I just started to think very, very darkly. Like I've never thought in such a dark way before in my life, and that's when I really noticed like something's really wrong. It's not just me being tired. Something's really wrong with me right now. I'm just gonna be honest with you about how I was thinking and how I felt, because if this happens to you once you have a baby or after you have a baby, I really suggest that you talk to people about it. And if it gets really bad, you talk to your doctor about it, so that if you need medication to help you with your hormonal imbalances, I would really suggest that you talk to your doctor about it, talk to people about it, because I know of women that would take medication once they found out that they were experiencing postpartum depression, and it really helped them out. I'm not a big medication type person. What I experienced was very dark and could definitely probably be, I definitely could have probably taken medication to help out the way that I was feeling. But I'm not a big medication person. I've never had to take medication for anything like depression before. I know myself pretty well, and I know that if I get closure and if I can talk things out with people, that really helps. If I have something to like distract myself, like a positive thing to distract myself, then I can turn then it can really help. And I know this because of the fact that I've struggled with like eating disorders in my past, and what I didn't want to do back then was talk to doctors about it, and I just kind of like dealt with it by myself. So I just was like correlating like those two things and thinking like, if I could deal with that, then I can get, I can deal with this. And I really, really, really believed that most of it was deprived from my sleep deprivation and my hormonal imbalances. So, your hormones go back to normal, so I just felt like this is gonna go away. Anyway, so I was just pretty much getting into unnecessary fights with Fabian. I was getting mad at him all the time. I was just like extra stressed, extra angry. So the only person I really talked to about this was Fabian, and I realized that this is like kind of a mistake to only talk to Fabian about it. I should have really talked to a professional about it, but luckily with my situation I got by just talking to Fabian about it. But it wasn't until I really, like, whenever I was mad, I had so much anger inside of me. Like, I literally felt like the only thing I could do to make the anger go away was to hurt myself and to harm myself. If you've ever felt like this way for anything, I really hope that this isn't like triggering for me to say, but that's really how I felt, and that's how I really realized that this is probably postpartum depression. And it would just get to the point that anytime we would fight about something, even something really just dumb, I would literally feel so full of anger. I just felt like I literally have to punch a wall, or I have to hurt my body so I can not feel this way anymore, because I don't know what to do with all of this anger. and I really regret not talking to someone that was a professional, like a doctor, about this, because I really put a lot of stress on Fabian throughout this whole change, this hormonal change that I was going through. Because, you know, Fabian, as my fiance, he wants to do whatever he can to help me. But then him seeing me that way was like putting a lot of stress on him, on top of the fact he has stress taking care of twins. And he would just tell me, like, I'm going to tell your parents about this just because I want to help you. And I just told him, like, no, you can't. I don't want anyone to know. And I was just like, I wasn't intentionally trying to do this, but I was really just being very horrible to Fabian because of the fact that I was putting so much pressure and stress on him, because all of a sudden he knows that when I get angry, I just don't know what else to do but to hurt myself because I'm so angry. And I just knew this was postpartum depression. I've never thought this way before in my life. I've never been so angry that I'm like, I need to punch something or hurt myself for some reason. So I just knew that this had to be postpartum depression. I mean, on top of that, I was just like irritable. I was just like not eating a lot, and it's just like so many symptoms. When I actually ended up looking into it, I was like, yeah, this is definitely postpartum depression. But, you know, it's scary to, I don't know, this is my point of view. It was scary for me to tell a doctor or someone about it, because I don't like when people pity me. So I didn't want to come out as having postpartum depression, because I didn't want people to all of a sudden like change the way that they talk to me, because I just like feel uncomfortable in situations like that. So I don't know, that was just like one of the really big reasons why I don't want to be put on medication because I'm depressed, even though it helps. And I don't want to talk to a doctor or a social worker about this, even though it can help. It's just like this thing about me. I just don't want people to all of a sudden change the way they talk to me and change the way that they feel about me, and I would consider that like pity, like stupid. I just wanted to like work through it, because that's just how I've always been, and that's how I kind of got out of my negative thinking back when I was in high school and had eating disordered ways of thinking. So I just thought like, oh, I'll get over this, even though I'm thinking about such horrible things like hurting myself or dying. Like, I'll just get through this. It wasn't until I started doing something that I liked and doing something other than my everyday exhausting routine that I finally started to relax and get out of what I would consider postpartum depression. Honestly, when I started filming and making videos, which had been a hobby of mine back when I was in high school, which I didn't really start back up until I had after I had my kids, which is now. Yeah, just me doing something that I liked, other than me being in my constant routine of taking care of the babies. Okay, hey guys, I'm back. Sophie started crying. You just burped on the camera. What I was saying was pretty much how I got through postpartum depression naturally. Just really keeping my mind occupied with positive things and doing things that I wanted to do and doing things that were fun to me personally. So when I was able to start my YouTube channel and start showing people like this is what it's like having twins, and you know, telling people about how I feel, it was very therapeutic to me. It just kind of, how I get through problems is being able to talk to people about how I feel. and kind of like turning on a camera and talking to the camera about how you feel, and then like broadcasting it for how many viewers, and they're giving you like positive feedback and everything. It kind of was like my version of like sitting down with like a best friend when I was young and talking to them about like my issues when I was, So pretty much, and the thing that made it really fun to me was not only do I get to turn on a camera and start talking and telling it how I feel and telling you guys, my bebés, how I feel, but also I got to experiment with editing and filming, and these are things that I really enjoyed doing back in high school when I had time to do these things. And so pretty much just me being able to break out of my routine of having to do the same things every day with my babies and taking time for myself to do something that I actually enjoy, that is like easy for me to do. I mean, it's really nice for me to see friends and stuff and hang out with friends and communicate with people and have social connections that way, but it's harder than just grabbing a camera and talking to it and editing like at the comfort of my home than it is to go meet a friend somewhere, talk to a friend somewhere, or having to schedule when a friend can come over and talk to me or hang out with me. So it's just an easy thing for me to like pick up and do, and just it makes me feel really relaxed to focus on something other than my daily routine. And then also not only did my therapeutic talks on my camera and my editing and like my filming really help, but just me remembering every day that I'm so blessed to have my two beautiful daughters, and as they have continued to grow and become more interactive with me and start smiling instead of just looking like with a blank face and crying their first few months, but now that they smile and they laugh, that really brings like a lot of joy into your life. And it started to, bring a lot more happiness into my life, and just remembering how lucky and how blessed I am to have my babies, and how lucky and blessed I am to have everything that I have in my life. So just as I started to remember those things, at the same time as my babies started to become more interactive and happy little babies, and at the same time I was doing these therapeutic videos for me on which is my YouTube channel, and editing and filming, just like all of those things started to bring like happiness and joy into my life. And I mean, definitely like my fights have gone down with Fabian, and actually like ever since I started my YouTube channel, like those dark thoughts that I had before that I like never experienced before in my life, which made me really believe it was postpartum depression, they just all went away when I started filling my mind with positive things, instead of being alone, trapped in my thoughts, waiting for the next baby to cry, waiting for the next baby to be hungry, waiting for the next baby to need a diaper change. Instead of being alone in those thoughts, I had something positive to occupy my mind, and that's what made those dark things for me personally go away. So pretty much that is how I naturally healed myself from what I believe was postpartum depression, never diagnosed from a doctor, which was my disclaimer in the beginning. But I mean, when you have such dark thoughts like that, and you just feel so lonely and you feel so sad all the time and agitated and irritable and not hungry, just all those symptoms I had, it was just really easy for me to believe that, yeah, this is postpartum depression mixed with, the trauma of my hemorrhaging and almost dying when I was in the hospital and not being able to take care of myself. So it really made me believe, like, yes, this is definitely postpartum depression. And so To end my video, I would really like to say, if you're watching this because you feel like you might have if you're watching this because you feel like you might have postpartum depression, I would just encourage you to not try to stick it out on your own, which is what I didn't do. I ended up talking to Fabian, someone I really trust, with my issues about it. So if you don't feel comfortable talking to a doctor like I did, I'm not going to tell you to go talk to a doctor about it, but talking to someone that you trust, or maybe talking to someone that doesn't know anything about you but can help you out, like maybe a social worker or a therapist. Just talking to someone really helps and is very therapeutic to me, and I feel like very therapeutic to a lot of people. But just don't keep in those emotions, don't keep in that anger. You need to let it out, because I really believe that that will really help you. So that's all for today's video. But thank you for coming back to our video. I just want one last thing to say. This is mine, the woman's, I guess, side version of postpartum depression and just how I felt. But I'm gonna have Fabian do a video on postpartum depression to help, I guess, reach out to the male figure or whatever figure that didn't have, you know, the baby, be able to give his point of view on how to help his significant other when they're going through something that is probably postpartum depression, or maybe has been diagnosed by a doctor as postpartum depression. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for coming back to our video. Please make sure to subscribe and let me know if there are any more like serious topics that you would like me to talk about or address, and I could definitely make videos on them, because I've experienced a lot of crazy things having babies and having twins. So just let me know, comment, and if you don't want your comment to be like public to everyone, then you can always DM me. My Instagram's always in the description below. But thank you for coming back to our video. We love you, and good night.